Episode opens with the revelation that we were already suspecting. Maddie was having an affair with Hal Durst and she was pregnant with his child. It's not clear if the child was aborted or if she did end up giving birth, in which case, where's the baby? Was it put up for adoption? But one thing is apparent. Alan's animosity against Maddie doesn't stem from her journalism or the fact that they are ex-lovers. In the present day, Milton decides to divorce Maddie, but he agrees to pay for the proceedings because that's the least he can do for her. Later on at work, Maddie learns that her complaint about the lights not working at Druid Park has led to the discovery of a woman named Cleo Johnson. When Maddie realizes that she knows Cleo and she should pursue the case to climb up the professional ladder instead of just delivering letters and getting sexually harassed at work, she calls Stefan and asks him whether he is the one who has killed Cleo, and he denies the allegation. Just to make sure that the dead body is actually that of Cleo, Maddie goes to the morgue. Well, the woman's face is too disfigured to be identified properly. And even though Cleo's mother has confirmed that that's in fact her daughter's dead body, Maddie seems to have her doubts about this whole situation. Maddie goes to the newspaper called The Afro, which has been covering Cleo's story for the last 3 months, to get some details. But she is shown the exit door pretty quickly. That said, before making her leave the premises, Ms. Murphy, who seems to be the EIC of The Afro, gives Maddie copies of all the coverage they've done on Cleo so that she can do her own research. Since she is so desperate for a byline, Maddie lands at Cleo's funeral to see if she can get any juicy details from there. And she does get to witness a very public spat between Slappy, Cleo's family, Myrtle, Reggie, and Shell Gordon. When Slappy finally exits the church, Maddie goes after him. Upon being questioned about any hidden details about Cleo's death that haven't been revealed yet, he tells Maddie about the deal between Cleo and Lucille and how they were working together to get the better of Shell Gordon's rigged betting system. When Maddie tries to get some answers from Lucille, she hits a dead end. Bob warns Maddie to not look into this case anymore. But still, she goes to Shell Gordon's bar to talk to him. She recognizes Reggie as the guy who was there when Tessie was kidnapped. But she doesn't make a big deal out of it for the time being because her focus is currently on Cleo. As expected, Shell isn't really interested in giving Maddie anything to work with. He talks like a politician and goes on a rant about doing everything he can to uplift the black community, even if it involves running a betting racket. She does learn that Dora is in Paris, which basically means that she is probably dead because she knew way too much about Shell's business. But that's about it. When Maddie shows her findings on the Cleo disappearance case to Officer Platt, he basically says that everyone works for Shell Gordon and nobody is going to go against Shell and say that the Kingpin is responsible for Cleo's death or disappearance. That leads to an argument between them, and the secret couple go their separate ways. The following day, Maddie decides to pay Miss Sawatsky a visit in the hopes of getting some information about Stefan's involvement in Cleo's death. Things start off pretty fine as Miss Sawatsky talks about her past, her affairs, and how much she loves her son. But when Maddie asks her if Stefan told her anything about seeing Reggie in their store right before Tessie Durst disappeared, she starts to get pretty angry. In an attempt to make her emotional, Maddie goes on to reveal that when Stefan escaped from jail, he came to meet her. Given how possessive Miss Sawatsky is about her son, she doesn't take this well, and she stabs Maddie in the stomach. The two women get into a brutal fight. Maddie somehow manages to lock herself up in a room. Since Miss Sawatsky realizes that attacking Maddie is going to lead to her imprisonment, she slits her own throat and dies. Maddie reaches for the telephone to call the police, but she passes out due to all the blood loss. So is Maddie dead? Well, I don't think so. She is grievously injured for sure, but I think she'll live to tell the tale. During Maddie and Alan's high school days, where they are seen attending a party, Alan is drunk out of his mind and starts speaking ill about his father, Hal. And he also blurts out that he is aware of Hal's relationship with Maddie and the fact that she got pregnant at some point during their affair. This recontextualizes the awkward moment near the lake where Alan forced himself on Maddie, even though she kept saying that she didn't want to have sex with him. Based on the painting in Hal's room and the whispered conversations shared between Maddie and Hal, Alan knew what was going on. And since he didn't know how to vent his frustration, he just took it out on Maddie. Also, during that horrifying moment, it seemed like Maddie was pushing Alan away because she didn't feel like their relationship was at that stage where they could get physically intimate. But the truth of the matter was that she was in love with Hal, and she was dating Alan to maintain this image at her school that she was in an age-appropriate relationship. With all that said, when Alan tries to get intimate with Maddie again, initially she expresses disgust, and then, weirdly enough, she proceeds to have sex with him. What does this mean? Well, I think that Maddie has seen the true face of Hal after she got pregnant, and she knows that he doesn't love her. Alan, however, is in love with her, and maybe that's why she decides to give him a chance. Almost everything that Maddie sees is a figment of her imagination. For starters, Maddie sees Seth and Alan visiting her at the hospital while she is recovering from her injuries. She then randomly gives birth to a grotesque-looking baby, which is abducted by Cleo. When she gets out of her bed to go after Cleo, she finds herself in ankle-deep water in the corridors of the hospital. She sees an injured Reggie shadowboxing and walking through those very corridors. She tries to go after him and ends up in a large hall filled with black women wearing the coat that Cleo had on the night she allegedly died. Maddie herself gets a coat that looks like the ones that were given to prisoners at concentration camps. Then she witnesses Cleo jumping to her death, and when she approaches her dead body, Maddie sees herself lying motionless on the floor. Later on, Maddie finds herself in a morgue, sitting in front of Tessie. When Tessie asks Maddie whether or not she is going to tell the world her story, Maddie blurts out that the little girl is old news, and she wants to focus on Cleo now. Maddie then finds the bodies of Hal Durst, a dead fetus, and a doll-like version of Steph. Then the episode briefly becomes a musical, and we see Maddie, Platt, and several other characters dancing to Me and My Shadow, the version by Peggy Lee, I guess. The dancers vanish, and the dancing hall changes to Maddie's funeral. Since no one wants to give a speech in Maddie's memory, she does the job herself after having a tiff with the version of her mother that lives inside her head. This is followed by yet another musical vision set to The Impossible Dream, where she sees a lot of people celebrating Cleo before Reggie appears out of nowhere and hits Maddie. Reggie frames Slappy for the alleged murder of Cleo. Since he feels bad for doing so, he pays Teddy a visit and gives him money to help him stay afloat because the Johnsons don't have any bread earners anymore. Teddy knows that his father has been framed, and he asks Reggie to tell him the truth. But Reggie says nothing and drives away with tears in his eyes. When he enters Shell Gordon's office, he finds himself face-to-face with Officer Platt, who gets busy questioning them about their involvement in Cleo's alleged murder. Reggie almost gives it away that he is reading off of Gordon's script in order to avoid getting himself investigated by Platt. However, Shell Gordon is a smart man, and he knows that Platt isn't stupid. So he quickly deflects the conversation to the topic of fishes and uses it as a metaphor to differentiate between black people who are working with him and black people who are working against him. That said, as soon as Platt leaves, Gordon gives Reggie an earful for not disposing of Cleo's body properly. I think Gordon wanted Reggie to make sure that Cleo's body disappeared off the face of the earth so that it couldn't be traced back to him in any way. But given how Reggie dumped the dead body in such a public place, he is still on the police's radar. As long as Reggie is being investigated, Gordon is also going to be questioned. And if this starts to hamper Gordon's business, I have a feeling that he's going to get Reggie killed as well. Captain Stassley asks Platt to come down to the precinct for a chat. When Platt gets there after wading through a Ku Klux Klan rally, Stassley tells Bosco to have a talk with Platt. Bosco goes off on a rant about how Italians, the Irish, and the Jews have faced all kinds of oppression, but they've managed to rise through the ranks and make a place for themselves in society. Bosco alleges that the black community always plays the victim card because they can't achieve success. Platt rightfully points out that the only reason black people find themselves cornered is because every person who is some shade of white is united in their racism against African Americans. Since Bosco has no way to counter that, he brings up Platt's relationship with Maddie. He says that if this piece of information becomes public, then he is going to lose his job, and Maddie will be in jail. That says everything that needs to be said about the times the characters are living in. Platt realizes that he is being threatened, and he has no option but to go on the back foot regarding this whole situation. It's possible that Platt is going to break up with Maddie. The last time they met each other, they had an argument. So, maybe their relationship has run its course. And since it can be used to harm them, it's best to walk away before someone gets hurt. Throughout, Maddie has approximately 4 moments of lucidity. One happens during the midpoint of the episode, where Bob Bauer pays her a visit and reveals that Stefan Zawadzki did, in fact, rape Tessie Durst. When Miss Zawadzki had found Tessie in that situation, She killed her and then dumped her body near the lake. Maddie brings up Cleo, and Bauer says that Slappy has been arrested for allegedly killing her. And when Bauer tries to get some information about Maddie's findings regarding Tessie's death, Maddie shuts down because she knows that he is trying to steal her story and publish it with his name in the byline. Then, there's a moment where she has a conversation with Platt about the nature of their relationship. She also sees her mother paying her a visit. And then, Maddie sees Cleo disguised as a cleaner. She thinks she is hallucinating again, but Cleo says that she is very real. If Cleo is alive, this means that she has faked her death. And that means two things could have happened on Christmas Eve. Reggie didn't actually kill Cleo. Yes, he met her that day because he was right outside her house. However, instead of following Gordon's orders, he took her to a safe place where she could hide until things cooled down. He got the body of a dead girl, presumably Dora Carter, and then made it seem like Cleo had died. Alternatively, Reggie probably did try to kill Cleo and dumped her body in that reservoir, but he didn't check if she was actually dead. So Cleo swam to safety, got a dead body, faked her own death, and took on a new identity. What does she want from Maddie, though? Is Cleo going to use Maddie to unearth the truth about Shell Gordon? Well, we'll have to wait till next episode to find out.